Greetings. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show, live and on demand here on BlazeTV, radio and podcast. I am Steve Deace. Todd and Aaron McIntyre are here with me as well. 888-900-3393 is the number. That's 888-900-3393. You can also let us know what you think about what we think. Utilize the stevedeace.com inbox, steve at stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook. Well, try to anyway. Follow us on Twitter at Steve Deace Show. And if you're looking for clips of this program to sample and share with others, go to youtube.com/Steve Deace. Regular order of business here on Wednesday, with one exception. Our good friend Daniel Horowitz is traveling today, so no woe and lamentation from the official prophet himself. Nevertheless, I will attempt to do some cheap knockoff generic version. I'll give it my best go here today. Although if you want real woe and lamentation, turn on the cable news. Okay. We've also got buy, seller, hold. That's coming up in the next hour of the program. Coming up in the next segment of the show, I think we need to have an adult conversation right now about the issue that could determine the next presidential election. And I'm going to do a preemptive. A preemptive intervention for fear that it will be this issue will be misused and create a boomerang effect at the exact same time and become a disadvantage come November. Because this requires a real serious conversation, far more than just our typical troll job. This is something we've not really seen before in America. This is a difference. I've been telling you the last 4 years, Donald Trump didn't change any paradigms. The cake is still baked the same way. Just the frosting got zanier. But what we're watching take place right now is a different recipe altogether. And I think we need to be adults about this, similar to coronavirus, and not let this get reduced to trolling, because it could end up creating a certain amount of sympathy that puts someone in office who is clearly, obviously not fit for it. We'll get to that at the bottom of the hour. But before we get to everything else, here's Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by Mini Tuesday. Joe Biden racked up big wins in Michigan, Mississippi, Missouri, and Idaho. Bernie Sanders won in North Dakota, and the race is too close to call in Washington state as of this recording. According to the Associated Press, Joe Biden now leads Bernie Sanders in the delegate count 823 to 663. Before yesterday's contest in Michigan, Joe Biden had this exchange with a union worker over the Second Amendment.
How you intend on getting the union vote when there is a large portion of the union workers that are gun enthusiasts, and you are actively trying to diminish our Second Amendment right and take away our guns?
You're full of
All right, thank you.
No, shush. Shush. I support the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment, just like right now, if you yell fire, that's not free speech. And from the very beginning, I have a shotgun, I have a 20 gauge, a 12 gauge, my son's hunt. Guess what? You're not allowed to own any weapon. I'm not taking your gun away at all. You need 100 rounds.
So when you were in Beto, when you said you're going to take our guns,
I did not say that. That's not true. I did not say that.
It's a viral video.
It's a viral video like the other ones they're putting out that are simply a lie.
Your voice, you said that you're taking the guns.
Well, he just clarified it.
Wait. Take the AR-14s.
Okay.
Biden was later asked about that exchange.
They're both targeting you over this exchange this morning with the voter about guns. Any regrets about how you handled it?
Well, I'm surprised that Sanders is joining Trump.
What? Anyway, Biden, after last night's big wins, couldn't remember which office he's running for.
Our headquarters is just around the corner, and these are all people who've been working like the devil to try to get us elected as the... So I want to thank...
Learning Spanish today. Today's phrase is dementia.
Demencia.
And the push to cancel any future debates began yesterday with James Clyburn of South Carolina telling NPR,
I think we will be at a point where Joe Biden will be the prohibitive nominee of the party, and I think the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, should then step in, make an assessment, and determine whether or not they ought to have any more debates.
Neither Biden nor Sanders held rallies last night due to the coronavirus. Moving on, Wuhan coronavirus panic update. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says not only is the virus dangerous, it's also racist.
Honestly, it sounds almost so silly to say, but there's a lot of restaurants that are feeling the pain of racism, where people are literally not patroning Chinese restaurants. They're not patroning Asian restaurants because of just straight up racism around the coronavirus.
But where things are really getting or staying crazy is in the world of academia and sports. Dan Wolken column at USA Today. It's time for NCAA to make the right call, tough call, and cancel tournament. UCLA has banned fans from all home athletic events until April 10th. Athletes from the Ivy League have filed a petition after the conference canceled its men's and women's basketball tournaments due to the panic. Stony Brook University spaced out fans in its arena during its America East Conference semifinal game to try and stop person-to-person transmission. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine called on all sports teams and sporting events in the state to limit spectators at any games, including multiple sites for the upcoming NCAA tournament. He also urged university administrators in the state to limit classroom time and switch to online instruction. Ohio State, Kent State, Otterbein, and Miami universities have already canceled in-person classroom instruction and switched to online instruction. The Big West Conference announced its tournaments will be played without spectators. The Mid-American Conference announced its tournaments will be closed to spectators from the general public. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo has literally called up the National Guard to create a so-called containment zone in New Rochelle. Washington State Governor Jay Inslee is expected to announce a ban somehow on gatherings of more than 250 people, and we could go on and on. Only about 6,500 people in the United States have been tested for the coronavirus so far. The latest numbers from the CDC shows 647 confirmed cases and 25 deaths in the country from the disease. Remember, this all started with guano. And finally, Pee Wee wrestling gone wrong.
Wrestle, Jay. Lord have mercy.
And that's what happened while we were away.
Dude, that's what I look like the one year I tried wrestling in middle school. I should have done that. Saved myself all kinds of humiliation if I just would have learned, he who fights and runs away lives to fight another day, right? Aaron's montage brought to you by Tommy John. And maybe the best endorsement I can give a product is we get to, when we talk about him here on the show, we get free samples of it. And the best endorsement I can give of this product is I have been so impressed with it. I have gone out now, not once, but twice, out of my own pocket and bought more. That's how much I like this underwear, which is all about fabric, fit, and function. Tommy John obsesses over every little detail and stitch. They use proprietary fabrics that perform like nothing you have ever worn before. I mean, the difference when I'm at the gym, moving around, in flexibility, comfort, it's absolutely worth the money. And if you want to give Tommy John a try, and they're no wedgie guarantee, and I'm telling you, man, you know, I'm not a small dude, and I work out a lot more than the average 46-year-old male does, and I've not had to pick at it. If you know, guys, if you know what I'm saying there, at the gym one time with Tommy John. So I would buy in. I wouldn't test the no wedgie guarantee because trust me, at 6 feet tall and 260 pounds, I have tested the no wedgie guarantee many a time, and it has come through every single time. All right. So comfort, stay put waistbands and a range of fabrics that are soft and comfortable. And like I said a minute ago, I'm paying for extra pairs of this underwear out of my own pocket. That's how much I love it. And they have stuff for the ladies as well. All right. So hurry to TommyJohn.com/Steve, TommyJohn.com/Steve for 20% off your first order. 20% off your first order at Tommy John, all one word, TommyJohn.com/Steve. So let's talk some more about what is and isn't happening with coronavirus. And I tweeted this out earlier today at Steve Deace Show. There's a map the New York Times, one of their reporters, has sent out. And it's and the intent of this is to give you a sense of panic. It's a case study in how to create a panic via a feedback loop. And it goes back and it looks at, did you see this when I tweeted it earlier,
Yes,
Todd?
I did.
All right, it goes back and it looks at the wide range of growth of coronavirus in America. And the point it makes is on January 14th, there were no reported cases. And then a couple of weeks later, thank you, Aaron, has grabbed that map. A couple of weeks later, there were 5. And then in February, we ended February with only 59. And then today on March 10th, we have 1,004 cases. And the whole point of this is to scare you to death. From the same people who believe that the planet is going to end, or have been claiming anyway, that the planet is doomed in the next decade. Well, then, I mean, let's get busy living or get busy dying. I mean, if we go out with coronavirus or a climate cataclysm, we're all dead in the next 10 years anyway, right?
Correct.
So why waste any amount of moments worrying about this? Okay. But here's the fallacy of this entire argument. Let's pick a random date. On February 18th, that was 3 weeks ago. February 18th, there were only 25 confirmed U.S. coronavirus cases. Now, what wasn't the media completely and totally obsessed with on February 18th? Coronavirus. So is it entirely possible that we had far more people than the 25 confirmed cases?
Yeah. It was certain.
Yeah, who probably just thought, I've got a cold. More on that in a second, because that's what it will be for most of you. I've got a cold. I've got, it's February. What is February every year? Cold and flu season. That's why you sell more ads in media for Theraflu and NyQuil during those months than any other months of the year, the rest of the year combined, right? It's Christmas shopping season for cold and flu antidotes and ailments. So on February 25th, there's only 25 or only 59. That was just 2 weeks ago. Well, again, were they obsessing about it yet on February the 25th? No, they weren't. Okay. And then lo and behold, after a week of mass panic and obsession, look at this explosion. We're up to over 1,000 cases. Well, when you have created your own feedback loop with this virus, this disease, what did you think was going to happen? But suppose when this originally broke out in Wuhan back in January, when the world first became aware of it breaking out in Wuhan back in January, who knows when it really did, okay? Or if that even is the place, because we're dealing with the Chi-Coms and communists lie while killing, so many of their own children, it would make Planned Parenthood blush, all right? I mean, Planned Parenthood looks at China's one nation policy and says, dude, slow the body count. All right. So, but let's just assume that's when we heard about it from, the Wuhan virus coverage began in January. All right. If on January the 14th, the date, and I don't know why they picked that marker. Maybe that's the first date the New York Times reported on it. I don't know why they chose that date. Okay. But January 14th, if I had said with my platform, and all the platforms I have at my disposal, working at one of the largest media platforms in all of conservative media, if I had fixated all of my platforms at my disposal on January 14th, in response, and I'm just going to use the date that's in that graph. Going to use their date, okay? And I'm going, and if I offered to write in fact, let me actually make it even more parochial. If I offered to write a guest column for the New York Times, demanding the Trump administration close the borders, seal the borders in America on January 14th in response to the Wuhan virus outbreak, would the New York Times have published that piece?
No.
Hell no.
It told you to go back to InfoWars.
Yeah, they told me I'm a racist, you're a bigot. Well, okay, well, some of you may say, well, Steve, you're not really that big of a media figure. It's the New York Times. That's true. I mean, now the New York Times did actually send a woman out here named Jackie to stay with me for basically 2 days and write a huge profile about me 4 years ago. But let's assume that I'm not on their radar. Ben Shapiro, biggest star in conservative media right now, right? If he had offered on January 14th to guest write a column for the New York Times demanding President Trump seal all the borders to keep coronavirus out, would they have published it?
No.
Hell no. And you know what they would have called him too? a racist, a bigot, and go back to InfoWars. Exactly. That's my point of this panic. Now, I understand, unfortunately, because I have been subjected to this way too often in recent years. There are too many people on every side of the aisle incapable of multitasking when it comes to their faculties, not with their devices. Incapable of thinking multiple things could be true at once. So this morning, I'm in the shower, and that's a good idea to take one of those every now and then. Because I keep getting people saying to me, well, Steve, look at Italy. I mean, why do we just think if it happened in Italy, it can't happen here? Well, I don't know. I mean, if Italy was such great shakes, why'd my ancestors do whatever the hell they could to get out 100 years ago and come here instead? Okay, I don't. But okay, let's go with it. Italy has a higher smoking rate than the U.S. by several percentage points, by the way. The average margin or the average standard of living in Italy is about $10,000 a year less than the United States. Italy's grandparents, there are grandparents alive in Italy today who sat out in the streets and cheered when Mussolini rode a tank down Main Street, Rome. And have you ever gone to Rome? Now, I haven't because I don't travel. I just, go online. But I know all kinds of people that have taken trips to Rome. My little brother took his honeymoon to Rome. You know what they'll come back and tell you? It's basically San Francisco. It's landmarks, and then it's a trash dump. All right. Cigarette butts everywhere in the street, trash in the street. Okay. I mean, I know some of you don't want to believe this, but we're better at this and superior at this than all these other countries. That's why we're the ones always bailing them out. We're better. We're better. We're not better people. We're not. We're just as sinful. We need a Messiah, just like all the people in all the other countries do. But in terms of our systems and methods and processes, we have proven over the last 2 centuries, we're better at this. In fact, we just proved it to the people of Italy in the last century. All right, that they were on our side in World War I, and we saved them from, putting their left arms behind their back in the presence of Kaiser Wilhelm II and honoring of him. And then when they signed up with Adolf in the second go around, we liberated their country from the fascist dictator their own people anointed to power. We're not Italy, guys. We're not. We're not Kenya. We're not Italy. We're the United States, and we're just better at these systems than anyone else in the world has proven to be. Now, I don't think that'll exist into perpetuity, but it's the case right now. It's the case right now. Now, I know there's a sizable portion of this society right now that doesn't want this to continue and will do whatever they can to make it no longer so. I understand that. We go up against that notion every day on this program, but they don't have their way yet. Now, if we keep falling for panics like this, though, the time in which they will be sooner than any of us want. So this morning I get back from the gym, I'm in the shower, and my normal routine is, I get caught up in what's going on with my favorite team, the Michigan Wolverines, and I'm listening to the sports station there in Ann Arbor, and the mid-morning show decided, you know what? Unbelievable. They made an incredible decision, the people hosting the show. They decided, we're getting all these, all these conflicting panics, and we're just sports guys. What the hell do we know about a virus? We don't know. Okay. So hot damn, right down the street is arguably the best university hospital in America. It's certainly in the top 5, the University of Michigan Hospital. It's right down the street, man. Why don't we go get one of those guys, one of the people over there in the Department of Epidemiology, where they do this all day long, all right? And I mean, this is some of the finest medical research on this planet is done down the street. And why don't we, instead of reading what Dan Wolken, sports columnist at USA Today, thinks, okay, and overreacting, why don't we, somebody say, be an adult, and call up somebody who does this all day long. And I listened to this entire interview, and I'd urge you, go find it. The show's called Inside the Huddle. Go turn off all cable news on every network. Turn them all off. Turn at all. First of all, you should be doing that anyway, because that cable news is where the truth goes to die in America. All right. You should be turning them all off anyway for your own mental well-being. Okay. Opioids, better for you than cable news. All right. Overdosing on opioids, still better for you than cable news. Okay. And go get this podcast and listen to it instead. And the fact that it's just a young guy hosting a sports show and he's not an expert in the fields, so he's asking like the kinds of basic questions we need to know, makes it even more informing. And this epidemiologist at the University of Michigan, I listened to the entire thing. I didn't know what she was going to say. She was maybe going to come on and tell me, hey, this is a panic, run for your lives, the end is nigh, right? And she had I would also guess a leading member of the epidemiology department at a very left-wing school like the University of Michigan, probably not voting for a lot of the same candidates and supporting a lot of the same causes that we probably do on this show. I think that's a safe bet. Don't want to profile, make everything a general blanket statement, but are the odds at least not in the favor that we're voting the same way most years?
It's not unreasonable.
That's not an unreasonable assumption, right? Okay. So she comes on, very soothing voice. It's like, listen to your mama talk to you. Okay. She comes on and she's smart she's a smart cookie. And here's what she told you. If you listen to this interview, she said, this is a serious strain of the flu, maybe the most serious we've seen in a long, long time. It primarily, though, attacks the respiratory tract. That's why the elderly are by far the most susceptible. If you are in relatively good respiratory health, chances are if you test positive for this, the most you'll see is a really bad cold. Maybe an RSV. But the most you'll see for most people that have really good respiratory systems and are healthy, the most you'll see is a really bad cold. Don't panic. Be vigilant. Take it seriously like you do the flu season, particularly if you live in a northern climate like Michigan, like Iowa. All right? Take it seriously. Have your hand sanitizer with you. Wash hands. Maybe fist bump at church instead of shake hands. I do that anyway. I've already got like a fist bump policy, cold and flu fist bump. I've done that at church for years. I already do that. All right. Eat right. If you're sick, stay home. Don't panic because there's going to be people that need to come in that are really sick. So unless you're really showing symptoms you can't overcome, don't, overwhelm the system with your worriness. These are all the things she said, which sounds an awful lot like what we were talking about yesterday. Why? Because this is all just common sense. And you're canceling all these sporting events. Now, hey, let me say this. If this is really serious and we need to shut the country down, I won't stand in the way. Like if Joe Biden showed up at the White House in 10 minutes and said, hey, I just got out of, and him and Trump walked out of a meeting together and said, you know what, we got more pressing things as Americans right now. And we're just going to suspend this whole presidential campaign, especially because it looks like Joe's the presumptive nominee anyway. And we've got all of our forces, Democrats and Republicans, for the next 30, 60 to 90 days. All of our focus is going to be on making sure that this doesn't become the 1918 Spanish flu in America. Okay.
Sure.
I mean, I don't work for CDC. I don't know. Do you know? I don't know. But the fact we're not seeing things like that. I mean, if we got to cancel the NCAA tournament and everything else, hey, I love the NCAA tournament. You know what I love even more than the NCAA tournament? My kids, my own life, my friends, right? I mean, I went through a decade where my favorite team didn't make the NCAA tournament. I still lived those years just fine. It's not going to end my life if we have to cancel it. Here's what I don't understand. What I don't understand is 8,000 people can't go to the Palestra in Philadelphia to watch Harvard and Yale play an Ivy League basketball game this weekend, but 160,000 people can go through the gates at LaGuardia in New York City, not too far away, which is right there in Ivy League territory, by the way. 160,000 people can go through the gates, at JFK, not LaGuardia, can go through the gates at JFK, which I think is the 5th or 6th busiest airport in America. Every single day that happens. Why aren't we shutting that down? Why aren't we shutting that down?
How many voters in how many states yesterday at the height of the panic went through the polling stations where they're all using the same machines?
Yes. Like 2 million people voted in Michigan yesterday, I think it was, or more. in the Michigan primary. If you look at...
It's like playing Russian roulette, man. It's like the deer hunter.
Columbus Circle in New York City is one of the top 5 busiest malls in America. 44,000 people go there every single day. Why haven't they shut that down? Because that blouse is only on sale one day only at Bloomingdale's. And, do you have a good answer for that?
No.
I don't, because you know why you don't? Do you know why you don't?
Yes.
Because there aren't any. That's why you don't. There aren't any. It's either serious or it's not. Okay, I've been watching the Big West Conference tournament since I was in middle school because it's that last game. Them in the Big Sky on championship week. They're like the last 2 games on when you're jonesing for a game at like midnight and you can't sleep. Been watching those games since I was a kid. They've canceled public spectators. First of all, I haven't had too many public spectators at the Big West tournament like ever. Okay, but what was going to bring in more people, do you think? LAX or the Big West tournament out there in Anaheim? Where do you think there's more people congregating? LAX or the Big West tournament at the Honda Center in Anaheim for UC Irvine and Long Beach State?
It'd be the airport.
Think it'd be LAX? They shutting that down?
No.
All the where did the governor of Washington come up with anything with more than 250 people? So as long as we're in groups of 249 or less, we don't contract the virus. Does any of this make any sense at all?
It's rock solid science, Steve.
It doesn't make any sense. If you want me to take this more seriously, you need to be more serious. You need to be more serious. I'm happy to take it seriously. I mean, when they told me Y2K was going to end me, dude, I did every software patch we could on all our machines. Remember those days?
Sure.
Yeah. Did them all. Go get it. Guys, go get a flu shot. Take vitamin C, vitamin D, lots of it. Get 20 minutes of good, high impact cardio exercise in a day so that you are breaking a sweat, getting your heart rate up, purging toxins out of your system. If you've got a gym that has a steam room, sit in there for 15 to 20 minutes. Sweat those toxins out of there. Eat healthy. If you're sick, stay home. But this doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense, Aaron. If it's this serious, then shut stuff down where there's far more people getting together than to watch Kent State play Buffalo on a Friday afternoon in the MAC tournament.
Oh, I think it makes perfect sense because, I mean, tell me the cross-section of the average viewer of MSNBC doesn't match up fairly well with the cross-section of the average collegiate academic administrator. Then it makes perfect sense, if you get where I'm going there.
What do you think? And that's a good point as well. Yes. I would bet the amount of people watching these cable news channels correlates directly to what their response to this is. What do you think, Todd?
Yeah, I was actually listening to Dan Walken on the Dan Patrick Show coming in today. And 2 things they keep saying, this is way more dangerous than the flu. And then they will say, there's so much uncertainty and we don't test for it. We have no idea how many people have this. You can't believe both those things at the same time based on what we know about this virus. It moves fast. But people also know that most people who get this, the vast majority, have symptoms of the common cold. So if you just do the math, there's all kinds of people out there who have it and are just fine. You cannot believe then that this is automatically worse than the flu. Yeah, and you can't say that in a context without talking about the populations that hurts this, the elderly. People keep doing this worst case scenario math as if every single person is the same. They are not. They never are related to this. It's just we have now, with the political season, this is a perfect timing. This with the political season, yes. We're going insane.
I'm asthmatic, by the way. I have been my whole life. I still use an inhaler before I work out. Just be prudent. Be an adult. No need to panic. All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show, live and on demand here on BlazeTV, radio and podcast, alongside Aaron McIntyre and Todd Erzin. Coming up next hour, we are going to play our little game of buy, sell, or hold, so that'll be a ton of fun. I want to address, though, another topic that I think our show, from what I can see within conservative media, our show was one of the first to kind of go there, and you're seeing more and more of this now. And I think you're going to see it become all the more prevalent given the announcement that Bernie Sanders is expected to make later today that he will be dropping out of the race. Now, he hasn't confirmed this. There's all kinds of people, sources around his candidacy saying it. He is going to give a speech later today, but I can't think of a time that someone gave a speech about the status of their campaign. Like anytime someone says they formed an exploratory committee, they're going to run. Like, does anybody form an exploratory committee and come back and say, you know what, we looked at this for the last few months and there's
Turns
just really,
out we're not that good of a candidate after all.
Nobody, there's really just no interest in us running. And nobody does that. Okay. Similarly, I can't think of a time someone said, hey, we're going to talk about at a critical juncture in a campaign where it looks like they've clearly lost momentum. Says, hey, we're going to reassess where we're at. And then comes back and says, everything's fine here. We're all fine here. How are you? Now, that might be the Bernie Sanders thing to do. I don't know. But I was thinking about it this morning. I kind of think peak Bernie Sanders might actually be that in the end you learn he's just not that down with the struggle. It's a great talking point. Maybe Hillary, this might be one thing Hillary was right about. That this guy's just he's not, this is a panderer. And this stuff all sounds great, but in the end, dude's got 3 homes, including a lake house. He's a multimillionaire. And he's not here to fight the power. He's going to get out of the way. You know, you're not behind Trump. You need to stop Trump, right? Now, I think, again, the spirit of the age that propelled him doesn't work like that. And still may be heard from between now and that convention in Milwaukee come July. But if indeed where it looks like things are heading takes place this afternoon and Bernie Sanders drops out, this is like, you know, Yoda evacuating Kashyyyk to head to Dagobah. Yeah, you realize you're not going to defeat Order 66, right? More and more people are going to start talking about something that I think we're one of the first people to address on our show. And I want to lay a marker down right now because I am afraid, based on what I have seen from much of quote unquote conservative media in recent years, and then I think at times from this White House's political operation, frankly, where they have a tendency at times, the president himself as well, to message things in ways that make things sympathetic towards his detractors. Remember the one Mexican judge?
Of course.
Like how do you make unelected bureaucratic judges popular? Turn them into sympathetic figures. You do stuff like that, right? Okay. And let me reiterate where we've been on our show for months now that this is beginning to take center stage. I want to show you a clip. This occurred just yesterday. I want you to watch this.
Right temperament with voters that you don't agree with, sir.
Vice President, on the coronavirus, and both targeting you over this exchange this morning with a voter about guns. Any regrets about how you handled it?
Well, I'm surprised that Sanders is joining Trump. It just surprised me.
Was it appropriate to swear at an American, though, especially a union voter? Was it appropriate?
So next to Joe Biden is Simone Sanders. When I bring her name up, I always say Bernie Sanders because she used to be Bernie Sanders. She was his communications maestro when he ran against Hillary 4 years ago, and now she's running Joe Biden's campaign. She is the woman next to Joe Biden. And what you see her do there is something that any of us that have parents or grandparents that are of advanced age have had to do on a regular basis. Essentially lead them in the right direction while they're waffling, dithering, unsure, right?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, you just buried your dad. You talked about how he's been dealing with a collection of health ailments for years now,
yes.
Right? I'm sure you've had moments like this with your father, yes. and as did your siblings in his final years, yes. Right? This is not an uncommon experience. Okay. We kind of loses his place. You see her kind of have to guide him. And this isn't, well, Steve, it's common, for handlers to move. When handlers move a candidate, they're like, that's our final comment. We're out of here. Thank you. Is that what occurred right there?
No.
I mean, this was a gentle leading like you do with somebody you care about of elderly advanced age. This happens in America thousands of times, if not millions, every single day. Not uncommon what occurred there. He's asked a question about coronavirus. Can we play that clip again?
Yeah.
All right, so the question he's asked is about coronavirus. Watch this again. All right? Watch as he looks like he's kind of unsure, lack of focus.
They're both targeting you over this exchange this morning with the voter about guns. Any regrets about how you handle it?
Well, I'm surprised that Sanders is joining Trump. It's just surprising.
Was it appropriate to swear?
He's asked about coronavirus, and his response is, I'm surprised Sanders is joining Trump. That surprised me. When you have elderly parents and grandparents who are slowing down mentally, have onset dementia, early stages of Alzheimer's, right? You'll ask them questions and you'll get answers that have, when and if they answer, that are just not pertinent to what you asked them whatsoever, right? Again, is that uncommon? No, it's not uncommon at all. It's part of the aging experience. What is Joe Biden, 78 years old, I believe, right? Or 77? 77 or 78 years old, okay? I mean, it's not, the vast majority of men his age are more likely to be in a facility or a nursing home or taking in-home care on a regular basis with a loved one and looking like that and walking around like that and answering questions with nonsensical answers that are total non sequiturs than they are doing 16-hour days running for president of the United States, right?
Yes.
Right. I've been telling you this for months. And now that he is the presumptive Democratic nominee, this man is not fit to do this job. He cannot do this job. And what I would imagine will happen over the next couple of months is the media that tends to give, even in the kindest of descriptions, the benefit of the doubt to Democrats. They're going to allow him to essentially take a couple of months sabbatical from campaigning on a regular basis with the race essentially over. And they're going to cover for him. But that will only recharge your battery so much when your battery's shelf life is about to expire. Right? If the battery in your car keeps going out and it's 10 years old and you haven't replaced it, first few times you jump it, man, it comes back to life, right?
Sure.
But sooner or later, the more times that you jump it, eventually it just does what? It expires. And you need a new one. It only has so much shelf life. And what I am concerned about, because when we get out to the full board general election campaign, they won't be able to conceal him to that extent. He's going to have to campaign. And the Trump campaign, what it will do right and well is call him out and demand it. And when you're the president, you have a certain level of gravitas, even if you have a 45% approval rating, as Trump apparently does, if you believe those numbers. I don't know what I believe about any numbers right now, frankly. But even if you have a 45% approval rating, you still carry the gravitas of the presidency. You're not a novelty act to most Americans. You're their president. You've been in office for 4 years. So if they keep trying to hide Biden throughout the entire spring and summer, he's got to stand up at a convention and give a 45-minute speech, right, in front of 100 million people. We're going to have debates, at least 3 in front of 100 million people a pop. The long strain of this campaign, it puts a strain on people who are even in good health, let alone what you've seen now twice in the clip we've shown you. And this happens daily with this gentleman. He cannot do the job. Now, I know too many of you are binary choice children, right? Because every time I point this out, the comments will be filled with, well, now do Trump. I want to make this patently clear. I don't give 2 craps and turds with corns in it what you think of Donald Trump. I don't care. I don't care. If you like him, vote for him. If you don't. Okay, cool. I don't care. Who you got in the Final Four? I don't care. But if you really, really detest Trump on that level, go find an alternative that doesn't have dementia while you still can. Because running that against him plays right into his hands. I mean, Donald Trump looks 20 years younger compared to him, does he not?
He does.
Does he look he never looks more presidential than in contrast to that.
There is an exception to that, though.
Which is what you think happened with at the plant in Pennsylvania yesterday?
Yes, because that's something the press clearly is ready, willing, and able to work with.
Agreed. I totally agree with that. I think you can't sit there and it's just disingenuous for people in conservative media who are now just in partisan shill mode.
Agreed.
And just like the left media
that
is.
Makes us look really
you
bad.
cannot just sit there and say that every time Trump is just, every time he's gone off and on his opponents or his detractors and that's he's a fighter. And then, Joe pulls what he did at that Pennsylvania plant yesterday and it's just that has no credibility. We're not going to make tribalistic, cultic arguments like that on this show. In fact, we hate them with the heat of 1,000 suns. All right, but that video, for every one of those moments, there's far more of these.
Agreed.
That we just showed you. You can't play with that. My concern is the Trump re-elect team is going to believe that the way to take advantage of that politically is to troll Biden. I think that's a terrible mistake because that's how you can turn him in. You can look like a bully and turn him into a sympathetic figure. I think a far more powerful tactic would be for a president, because this is now where the gravitas of the title of president works against you too. Is people expect more of you than they did before you were the president. I think it's far more powerful for the president of the United States and his campaign to look at the American people and say, you know what, man, I haven't agreed with Joe Biden a lot over the years. Serve the country, appreciate his record. It's pretty obvious this is not the same Joe Biden that was even a vice president 4 years ago and isn't up to doing the job. And I think you should ask yourself, if I vote for him, who's really running the country if this guy wins? Because I don't think he's doing it. And just be an adult about it. But I think if you turn him in to a conservative troll bait, my fear is you're going to turn him into a sympathetic figure. And a lot of people are going to say, you know what? I don't know, maybe he can't do the job, but I'm just sick of you and I want to make you go away. Especially if we continue with the coronavirus recession that everybody is trying to create as we speak right now. And the economy slows down a little bit here in the next few months. And the supply chain from China doesn't stock our big box stores like we want it to for our kids' birthday parties and our graduation parties this spring and summer. There's a fine line here. Nobody likes to see old people get bullied. Nobody does. On the other hand, this is a defining moment, I think, for us. I think this is the issue right now. That it almost doesn't matter what Joe Biden's ideological profile is. He has dementia. All the signs of it are there. And if those of you that consider yourselves now coronavirus experts and know precisely when the earth will expire from climate change, if you could just go look that up on WebMD, in between your vast other amounts of great resource gathering, you would see he checks pretty much every box. He has dementia. We're never going to lie to you on this show. Donald Trump's not a nice person, maybe not even a good one. He's been deeply immoral much of his life. Has no problem being dishonest on a daily basis, even now as president. The media reporting on him is trash. Has no problem being dishonest, right? We're not going to lie to you on this show. We're not here to spin you. This to me, you have to ask yourself. And now's the time to have this conversation. The convention is 4 months away. You don't want a guy who's an outright socialist as your nominee? Fine, it's your party. Worried about what he will do to you down ballot? Put your House majority at risk? Fine. Then if you care about this country at all, we've still got all the way to November for you guys to tell us how much you hate Donald Trump. Okay? But between now and in July 13th, I think, is when the Democratic convention begins, somewhere around there. So almost exactly 4 months from now. 4 months. Could those of you in the machine that moved so rapidly last week to take Bernie Sanders from inevitable to out of the race, could that same machine, if you care about the country at all, now go find yourselves an alternative, retire him, give him his medal, thank you for your service, Joe, and go get a candidate that doesn't have dementia. And so we can have an actual election here. Because this is the first time, I think, in American history, it is obvious that the presumptive nominee of a major party is not fit for the office. We've had all kinds of people that lack the moral character, and that might even include the guy who's in office right now. But I don't think we've ever had questions about the mental capacity of a major party nominee like we do right now. I don't agree with Medicare for all. Maybe you do. That guy can't run your program. Can't run a foreign policy. He can't do anything, guys. It really is weekend at Bernie's. He's literally being dragged to the car by his campaign spokeswoman. So he knows where to go while he's answering a question with an answer that has nothing to do with the question he was asked. And the question he was asked was not on some obscure issue, was it?
No.
It's only the number one trending issue in the world right now, coronavirus. He cannot do the job. And I would also urge the Trump team to be very careful, though, about turning him into a sympathetic figure. Absolutely, this needs to be confronted. I think it's the most pressing issue in this election right now, is that the other party seems destined to try and nominate a candidate who is not mentally capable of the job, the most important job, arguably, on this planet. But if you turn him into troll bait, Hannity will applaud every night on Fox, and your conservative minions will enjoy all the clicks they get. But in suburban neighborhoods like the ones I live in and Aaron lives in, and exurban neighborhoods like the ones you live in, Todd, you will turn him into a sympathetic figure. It will boomerang against you.
And with all the things that have already happened, we didn't think we were going to, a week ago even, we still didn't maybe even think that we would be sitting here right now talking about presumptive nominee Joe Biden. Mm-hmm. I mean, that can happen. It's not inevitable, okay? We just learned that Bernie Sanders was not inevitable. Donald Trump is not inevitable either. There's always ways to screw things up.
We'll come back hour 2. We will get into buy, sell, or hold. We'll let you set the agenda here when we return on the Steve Deace Show, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Back here with Hour 2, live and on demand here on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. I am Steve Deace, Todd Erzin, and Aaron McIntyre here with me as well. 888-900-3393 is the number, steve@stevedeace.com. That's how you can email the program, DEACE. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, @Steve Deace Show. If you do listen to us via the podcast, thank you. Please consider leaving us a 5-star review wherever you choose to podcast from. The more of those we get, the more it helps to grow the show, and the more likely it is we get to stay doing the show as well. And we want to say thank you to all of you, tons of you that have left us 5-star reviews already. Please keep those coming. We'll get to buy, sell, or hold here in just a moment, but we have some breaking news during the top of the hour. Hilarious. So now both CNN and the Washington Post are reporting that Bernie Sanders, when he gives his campaign update here later today, is going to announce he is staying in the race. Your thoughts, Todd?
Nothing matters, first. Second, at least then jazz it up. Announce who your VP candidate is going to be. Just don't. You You can't be the Bernie Sanders that wants to burn it all down and just do like a pro forma press conference, just like any political hack. I mean, you may as well be Mitt Romney, for God's sakes.
I've never seen it. I can't recall someone at a critical juncture of their campaign when they have lost momentum saying, I'm going to go home and reassess where I'm at. And you know what? I do remember this happened once, now that I think about it. This is the only other time someone at a critical juncture of their campaign reassessed where they were at and then stayed in the race. It was Ben Carson. I forgot about that.
That's true. He did.
And Carson's people, I know this for a fact, leaked to Jake Tapper and Dana Bash at CNN that Ben was going to go, he was going to drop out after his terrible performance in Iowa, and where he had been barely campaigning for president for months. He was going around the country doing book signings in states that didn't even have early primaries. He wasn't campaigning. And, he had a terrible showing in Iowa because he didn't put forth any effort. And CNN broke that story. And then suddenly Ben Carson changed it to he was going home to get fresh. Remember, was it fresh pants? Is that what it was?
Oh, yeah.
He was going home to get, he had to go home and get a change of pants. I think that's what it was. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, no, I know.
Does that ring a bell?
You're crushing my soul with this entire story. It was pants.
He had to go home and get some clean pants. That's the only other time in my career. The only other time in my career until now I can recall someone at a critical juncture of a campaign when they had clearly lost momentum, said they were going home to reassess where things were at, and then came back and said, all right, version 2, reboot 2.0. It's the only other time. So.
2020.
Okay. You know what? I got to believe like there's got to be like a Division 12 sporting event that we need to cancel, right?
Yeah.
For coronavirus.
Yeah.
While all the malls and airports and everything else stay open, Like I texted this to a buddy of mine today and he said, well, I just think Trump is keeping a lot of this stuff open because he doesn't want an economic slowdown because that's, it's a re-elect year. And I said, okay, if he's doing that, then shouldn't the Democrats try to impeach him for something like that, right? I mean, if you want to hold hearings and document that the president is putting public safety in danger in order to keep 3% of economic growth going each quarter, I'd listen to that argument. Would you listen to that argument?
Sure.
Notice we're not doing that though, are we?
No, we
got impeachment over Ukrainian phone calls no one ever heard. We got that. We got that instead. Okay, it's just it's the worst of both worlds all of the time. Terrible people doing terrible things to other terrible people terribly. Let's get to Buy, Sell, or Hold, Part 1, brought to you by our friends over at Patriot Mobile. Hey, we just witnessed what the left machine and its corporate allies and the media did to Bernie Sanders leading up to Super Tuesday, right? Resurrecting Joe Biden's campaign, which was DOA. There's an important lesson there. We are also so much stronger when we stick together, and Patriot Mobile is the only mobile phone provider that donates a portion of your monthly bill to the organizations and causes fighting for the values that you believe in. Like the right to life, the right to keep and bear arms, supporting veterans, religious liberty, etc. And with plans starting as low as $25, Patriot Mobile comes with unlimited talk, text, and the same reliable nationwide service, except no hidden fees like some of the big boys try to sneak in there as well. Plus, switching is super easy. Just go to patriotmobile.com/Steve, patriotmobile.com/Steve, and get a free activation when you use the offer code Steve, plus a free gift when you open up a new line. Or call their U.S.-based customer service team. U.S.-based, I think that is code language for people you can understand. At 972-PATRIOT. That's 972-PATRIOT. All right, again, patriotmobile.com/Steve, offer code Steve. patriotmobile.com/Steve, offer code Steve. All right, buy, sell, or hold. Here's how it works. Aaron, with a little help from you, his friends in the audience, will put forth a series of predictions, postulations, positions, etc. prophecies. And Todd, you and I will decide, are we buying that? Are we selling it? Usually we may have a good reason or 9 why that might be the case. Once per episode, we are permitted to put a hold on something, but if it's for any reason other than the utter and self-evident lameness of what we're being asked to decide upon, the Dude Code calls for you to be beaten, or at the very least, mocked and scorned. Aaron.
Yes, and just so you know, coming up at the bottom of the hour, we're going to do something a little bit different for Buy, Sell, or Hold. But first, listener submissions. We'll start with Constantinos Roditis, who says, "The Church of Progressivism saith, coronavirus and all these are but the beginning of the birth pangs, and soon cometh the apocalypse of thy climate change."
Bye.
Yes.
I like how that was done.
Yeah.
That was very well done. I'm not even going to attempt to add any of that. I'm going to let that stand alone. Bye.
Rocco says, if you get coronavirus, you need to get Lyme disease too, because you can't have a corona without a Lyme.
See, I want to be appalled at this because we have had, at least reported anyway, 25 people die, right? 25 of our countrymen have died from this, right? We've had about 5,000 people worldwide made in the image of God have died from this. I would like to be appalled at Rocco's making light of it. But I understand the compulsion and impulse to go there because of the way we are constantly misled and manipulated on these topics. You know, like I'd like people to not feel like they should go to complete jackass outlets like InfoWars and Alex Jones to get their news. I'd like that, right? But you know, when they've been misled and manipulated by legacy media for so long, the very market to turn to alternative outlets like that is created, right?
Yeah.
So similarly, Rocco's sense of humor is a byproduct of what we have been fed. How many crises? I've run down the list how many times. Y2K, H1N1, swine flu, bird flu, net neutrality, sequester, Trump tax cuts, open borders, closed borders. How many times? The world, we just had a campaign with 25 Democrats, and I think all of them told us the earth was going to expire in the next decade or two. I mean, this is constant. And we all know the tale of the boy who cried wolf, right? If you jerk people's chains often enough, you know, it's when the real pandemic shows up, they're going to be like, whatever, dude. I've been down this road, been there, done that, bought the t-shirt.
Yeah, this is what I was referring to on Twitter earlier today. Forgive me if a scientific community that is ritualistically winking and nodding at transgenderism and refuses to stand for what a life is. I'm sorry, I simply don't trust that medical community to lead me down a path that I can trust on a regular basis. I simply don't.
Well said. Next one, I'm not sure how to say this person's name, but Buy, Sell, Hold, the Batman will be the first solo Batman film to gross $1 billion in the box office.
I'm going to sell because you need to adjust those numbers for inflation. All right. If we adjusted The Dark Knights, that movie came out in 2008. If you adjusted that for inflation, that's a $1 billion global movie. Okay. If you adjusted the 1989 Batman film from Tim Burton, that's in Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson, at the time, that set like every domestic box office record that E.T. and Star Wars did not own. Was that 1989 Batman film? If you adjusted it for inflation, it would be $1 billion movie. So when I look at those movie grosses, I always look at the adjusted for inflation numbers. So while I do think the movie will be a huge hit, I'm going to sell because we've already had Batman films, if you adjust for inflation, that have reached that number.
Well, and I'll also sell because I'm not certain it's going to be a huge hit. It's obvious it's a Batman movie, so comic book fans are absolutely going to go see it. But after you have the excellence that was Christopher Nolan, and then you have very quickly followed up on that, the frustration of that you felt, Steve, not necessarily with how Batman was. I think people were pleasantly surprised with Ben Affleck, but with the entire I
thought Ben Affleck was really good.
Yeah, but with the entire Warner Brothers endeavor there, I don't like. Are the people beyond comic book, they might just be Batmaned out and superheroed out a little bit.
We'll see. That's possible. It is possible.
I mean, it's not going to tank or anything like that.
Well, we'll see. It is. At some point, there will be a saturation point. We haven't reached it yet, but we could be reaching it. Who knows? You might be right about that. I mean, at this point, Batman as a character has been, from a film character, unless you just absolutely F it up, like what they did with the George Clooney Batman versus Robin, and Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze and Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy. Unless you just make an absolutely that film made well over $100 million too, by the way. But unless you just make a dreadful film, if it's competent, Batman has proven to be Teflon Don. I mean, almost impervious. All right, to when Chris Nolan made Batman Begins, people thought the superhero craze was dying out, right? In the mid-2000s. We didn't even have an MCU yet. So we'll see. I think the biggest mistake the DCEU made is it worried too much about its Rotten Tomato scores than its box office. Batman versus Superman was a massive smash hit. Massive smash hit. Huge hit. Made like $900 million worldwide, adjusted for inflation. It was a massive hit. But because the critics didn't like it, they way overreacted. They instead of letting Zack Snyder fulfill his vision, and then, Snyder's had one of his children commit suicide and ended up leaving. But instead of putting it off to let him come back and fulfill his vision, they handed it over to Joss Whedon and said, hey, midstream, can you try to turn this into your first Avengers film? And he couldn't do it. And they put out a goulash movie that wrecked where they were going and lost their vision. Because Suicide Squad, I thought that movie was a ton of fun. I thought it was a ton of fun. Critics hated it. Critics loved the Birds of Prey movie. That movie is absolute trash. Audiences hated it. So I think Warner Brothers worried way too much about its Rotten Tomato scores, and that's where the DCEU, I think, went off the rails.
Ryan Hook says toilet paper replaces the dollar as the new world currency. A lot of submissions like this.
Tell me why there was a run on toilet paper. Do you guys know why?
No.
I totally get a run. Like I get a run on hand sanitizer. In fact, if the store shelves were not out of hand sanitizer, I'd probably be on here telling you guys, why aren't you buying more hand sanitizer? I totally get that, right? I can totally get why antibacterial wipes. I'm a big antibacterial wipe guy. All right, because you guys know I've got a little Danny Tanner in me when it comes to cleanliness around the house. Okay, I can those things I can get, right. Tell me why the run on toilet paper. What does that signify?
I don't know, man.
I mean,
way to go, Dad.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, toilet paper in and of itself is a waste removal product. So it doesn't impart. Like the reason that you would wipe your counters down with an antibacterial wipe is because you're disinfecting them while you're cleaning it, right?
Yeah.
You're not just wiping things away, but you're disinfecting the area that those things used to be in at the same time, right? That's not how toilet paper works. That's not how it works. It just takes the bad stuff from the trash compactor in your body away. Why was that gonna keep you? Is that your leprechaun flute? Why was that gonna keep you safe from coronavirus? Is the toilet paper? Why?
It's as perfect a visual for this whole hot mess as anything else, so I'm going to let it stand.
Yeah.
Well said.
Moving on, Shia Jesus Alpha and Omega 3 says the SEC should investigate media higher-ups and on-screen personalities to see if they dumped stocks before commencing the fear-mongering over coronavirus. I love that.
I love that one too. I'll buy.
Yeah. Sure. Absolutely.
I'll buy. You bet. And then I think, in fact, they shouldn't do it yet. They should wait and they should be monitoring and then see when do these same entities, do they try to get ahead of the market? When do they start buying these things back? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because that's what because if you knew when the sell-off was supposed to happen, then you know when the buyback is, right? Because what's the old motto? You sell high and you buy low, right? So if you knew when to sell off, then you're going to know when to buy back. Right?
Right.
So I think you let the trend play itself out and find out when and if those same people knew when to start going back in at the same time. That's what I'd be. So I'd sit back and let it play out a little bit longer. But I love the spirit of where you're coming from, so I'm going to buy it.
This is somebody who clearly believes in the church of assume you're being lied to here.
Yes. Absolutely. Yep.
A Matter of Time says if Biden is the nominee and debates Trump during debate, he'll tell Trump he is full of bleep and or challenge him to a push-up contest. I know we're trying to be funny here. I want you to take this seriously.
I am taking it seriously, and I would buy it. Yeah.
And
this guy's done it. I mean, how many videos have we done of him challenging people to push-up contests? Okay.
This is where Trump gave permission to everybody to throw aside decorum. It's his best bet. If in his dementia he can be angry, cranky, crusty old Joe.
Yeah. Then there's a Gran Torino quality to that. Then there's about time someone, hey, I sit here and watch most of these people all the time too and tell me, I wish somebody would tell me to get off my lawn too. Yeah, that's why I think there is a fine line here. I agree with that.
And I want to echo what you said about that. I don't understand conservative media getting the vapors of, did you hear what Joe said? That was not a bad day for him yesterday.
Yeah.
Up until, I don't know which day, which video happened anymore. It's all blurring together. But with that union worker, that was not a bad moment for him in terms of ginning up a base to want to go out and fight for a guy that he did not win. He on his own, Joe Biden did not win.
No.
As you said last week, this was manipulated so that other people dropped out. He couldn't win. I firmly believe all our analysis along the way was as an individual against that field, it was impossible for to win, and he didn't.
I've never seen video I've never seen a candidate for president of this country behave in the way that Biden does in that video. I've never seen anything like that.
Which video are we talking about?
The one where he has to be led away.
Oh, well, no, that for sure.
The one he has to be led to his car and not brisked away from cranky media questions. He's got to be shown where the car door is. He's got to be walked out, answering a question with a line that has absolutely nothing to do. And it's not like they asked him, hey, what'd you think? They asked him about the most pertinent issue facing planet Earth in many people's minds right now, coronavirus. I've just never seen someone running for the highest office in the land behave like that in that kind of a setting. And you know who behaves like that? Most of the men Biden's age who are at America's nursing homes right now. That's who behaves like that.
Breaking news from your alma mater, Todd. UW-Madison to transition to online courses at the end of the week. Why wait? But that's it.
Yeah, what sense does that make? I don't understand. Again, why at the end of the week? Why 250 people or less? If you're worried about it, and then all these universities have online courses right now. Just say, hey, no class today. We need 24 hours to set everything up. And what is the purpose of the delays then? If it's this pertinent, why do we need delays?
If you're worried about an outbreak on campus, isn't it better to keep it on campus instead of sending all these kids home to their hometowns too, to spread it there?
That's another good question. Yeah.
It's just so dumb.
This is virtue signaling is what it is.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
None of the public schools are being closed, are they? The K through 12s?
That I've seen so far.
No, it's dumb. This is pretty bold, I think, from Caleb Fields. Joe Biden refuses to attend any presidential debates. He'll give some political answer, but the real reason is he doesn't want the contrast of a very much alive Donald Trump and his own corpse.
I'll sell that. He'll get destroyed if he does that. Annihilated. If I'm Trump 2020, I am on my knees praying that Joe Biden did something like that. Because what that does is I now get the full benefit of Joe Biden's mental faculty issue and don't have to worry about looking like a bully next to him and coming back at him. I mean, for him to just basically eject. I think you're looking at a Jeremy Corbyn type of loss for Democrats if Joe Biden were to do something like that. Do I think they're going to attempt to do it now to Bernie Sanders, claiming since he wants to stay in? Like, do I think we're going to, I mean, they're already saying no people at the debate on Sunday. Could I see that there is no debate happening on Sunday? Could I see them do that to Bernie Sanders in the Democratic field? Sure. But in a general election, they would get annihilated for that. Annihilated.
Yeah. Well, just remember, this is about what the press can manipulate. They clearly are fine manipulating Biden going Trump. That's what they want anyways. They want their own Trump. They want to give Trump a taste of his own medicine. If he's going to throw out curse words and say, I'll slap you, that's their version of it. And they are willing to manipulate that. They can't manipulate.
If he's a no-show.
Yeah, they can't.
Yep. Moving on, Salvador Manila says within 30 days, we'll see a silver alert issued when Biden and the campaign bus go missing. Again, I know that's meant to be funny.
Yeah. I will sell because I think that on some level
there's too many handlers.
Yeah, there's too many handlers for something like that to occur. Too many handlers for something like that to happen. Yeah.
So
Aaron Reale says people who stop the microwave before it goes off and then don't clear the remaining time are social miscreants who deserve all the floggings.
I'm out of outrage. I got to sell on that.
Aaron, not you, Aaron. This Aaron.
Oh,
this is where you draw the line. You could find no lines to draw in the recent Star Wars saga. I mean, not a single line. Every time you argued with me, this is where you find the bridge too far. Come on, man.
We all have our breaking points, Mr. Erzin. Yes.
Rev AG says Mount Rushmore of basketball duos. Number 1, Jordan Pippen. Number 2, Magic and Kareem. Number 3, Kobe and Shaq. And number 4, Nash and Malone.
I think he meant Stockton and Malone, right? I think is what he means there instead of Steve Nash. But I get all those white guys look alike though, so I'll let that one slide. I'm going to sell. I would not put Jordan and Pippen number 1. I think Scottie Pippen is the most overrated player in NBA history. I mean, he was a nice player, pretty good one, making him one of the top 50 players in the NBA. How many guys would have been in the top 50 players in the NBA if they got to play next to Michael Jordan? Okay, so I think you could just put Jordan and compliment. I mean, I would sell on that just because I don't buy number 1 as a duo. The rest of them, I think you could put, in there. I could come up with a couple of others. Dr. J. Moses Malone was pretty good. The Celtics had triplets, so they didn't really have a duo there, right? Because you had Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish and Larry Bird together as a trifecta. But I would sell because I think Scottie Pippen is the most overrated player in NBA history.
Yeah, and I think you could. I mean, if you go back, the original Celtics, Cousy and the greatest.
No, you're talking about
the greatest center of all time.
Yeah, when they won.
Bill Russell.
Bill Russell. Yeah, when they won 10 championships, right?
Yeah. So I think yes, I will not be able to accept the list as it stands.
All right. Roger Gray says, let's take these one at a time. I'm going to change this slightly. Joe Biden picks Kamala Harris as his VP.
Sell.
Oh, I think this would be I don't think it's nearly that easy of a sell. I think that, I mean, with all the crazy stuff that's happened, if you really, really, really want to shore up your base of black support, which he already has.
He has far more black support than she had.
He already has that. But if you really want to put that up there and make sure at least all the virtue signalers are on board your campaign, I think that's a pretty
He's got more street cred in Black America than she ever had. She's from a state. He's going to win just by showing up. She can't help him at all. If they come out of Milwaukee with him as the nominee, the vice president is going to be the running mate is somebody that the Democratic Party wants to hand the reins off to as the face of their party for the next 10 years. That's who the running mate's going to be. And that clearly ain't going to be Kamala Harris.
Correct.
That's who I think it'll be.
Second part of this, whoever he picks as his VP, he will resign and they will become president.
I could absolutely see that.
Resign for health.
Yeah, I'll buy that part. Yeah, I'll buy that for sure. He's not running if he gets elected, he's not running the country. He's not.
That's a great crazy voices in the head question. Yeah, I'll buy.
Let's see. Elliot Want says Biden's gaffes get continually worse. I'll buy that. He gets replaced at a brokered convention.
I will buy because I think there's more, especially with Bernie staying in. If you're looking, if he stays in, that gives them even more excuse to do this. I'll buy. I don't think the odds are high. I don't. But I think they're higher than people think that they are. Like when I don't think it's like 50% that they will do this, but I don't think it's 5 either, because we're dealing with an unknown here. We've never had a presidential candidate whose mental faculties were so obviously in question. And then what the Democratic Party did last week, we've never seen a political party do that in the open in America. So we're in uncharted waters here. So like, this is like, if this was a prop, I would bet on it because I think the value is there. Doesn't mean, just because I'd bet on it doesn't mean I'm predicting it though. Meaning that if this was a prop and it was like 10 to 1, the value, I think the odds are higher than 10%. So I'll take those odds. You know, I don't necessarily think it's going to pull. Like when I bet on the Washington Nationals 22 to 1 to win the World Series, I didn't think they were going to win the World Series. They did. I didn't think so. I just looked at the other value. I looked at the team that they had and the value they represented and thought that's a good bet because sharps bet numbers, not teams. Okay. So I think this is actually a good bet that he gets replaced. I wouldn't predict it or expect it to happen, but I think the odds are higher than maybe most people think because we're swimming in uncharted waters now.
I appreciate that. I will sell that all-in moment that they went. I think they want to prove that they can pull this off now.
Pat Riot says rugby is better than soccer, although scoring is still low. Buy.
I'll buy because they actually hit each other in rugby and don't have wimpy, dainty yellow cards and flopping.
Sell.
Carla Bramlett says the virus will push Congress and the White House to seriously look into moving manufacturing back to the U.S., incentives, tax cuts, or knock someone upside the head. So that should be the reaction.
You're right. It should be, but it's not. This is where the Democratic Party should be coming at Trump on his strength and saying, hey, you didn't do enough. You got all these, everyday man workers, and we didn't bring these jobs back. They're not doing that.
Far more likely is that the place that this started in China is going to be a part of developing the vaccine that all of us then gladly take afterwards.
Yeah, I think that's, yes.
Maybe a couple more real quick. Higher Vision says Twins versus Dodgers in the World Series.
Sell. Don't believe in the Twins. It's a postseason team.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's do one more. Todd Saffel says Steve would be the first one in line for pumpkin spice, Purell, and Lysol.
Buy.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you just love it to your hands to smell like pumpkin spice all the time?
He'd be the guy in that video spraying himself down on the sidewalk, with the coronavirus. As long as it smells like that, what you got?
I'd be wiping my face with it. You bet.
Yeah.
I'd be all over it. That's a great idea.
Yeah, so we'll be back after the break here with something that should make you very nervous. I did actual work to prep for this segment.
I get nervous when you take initiative.
Yeah, it's bad.
Back here on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. You're on the Steve Deace Show alongside Todd and Aaron McIntyre. Easy for me to say, or not so much. Part 2 of Buy, Sell, or Hold, brought to you by our friends over at Keeps, who know that losing your hair sucks. But you know what doesn't? Keeping your hair without ever leaving your couch. Now, if you're losing your hair, you got to know about Keeps because they offer the same generic versions of the only 2 FDA-accepted hair loss and approved hair loss products. That means these products are the real deal. Okay. But the generic versions of them were going to save you a ton of money at the exact same time. So to take advantage of this, it's simple. Just answer a few online questions, snap a few pics of your hair, and a doctor will review everything and then recommend the right FDA approved hair loss treatment for you. And then it is shipped discreetly to your door. So you're probably wondering, that sounds great, Steve, but does it work? Well, not only does it work so often, that 66%, 2/3 of the people who use these treatments the guys end up experiencing hair regrowth as well. So here's the deal. Go to keeps.com, Keeps, keeps.com/grow, keeps.com/grow, and you'll get your first order of Keeps for 50% off. Half off your first hair loss treatment at keeps.com/grow. That's keeps.com/grow. We now go to the portion of the show I am very nervous about when Aaron, as he so rarely does, and let's face it, the results are mixed when he does. Attempts to take initiative as opposed to just millennialing the thing and just cruising and relying on the easiest path of resistance here. Part 2 of buy, sell, or hold. Aaron, I am deeply concerned.
Results are mixed like a shamrock shake, smooth and tasty. Yes. So this portion of the show, I think we did this once before, maybe, or maybe it was just an idea in my head that never actually got off the ground. But we're actually going to do it this time because we live. I mean, you like you said at the beginning of the show, Steve, if you would have told anyone 2 months ago that we should close down our borders to stop the spread of the Wuhan coronavirus, which has its origins in literal bat bleep, people would have told you to go back to the asylum, take your pills at all.
You're a hater and a bigot.
You're a hater and a bigot. So we're living in this world where it's really, really tough to distinguish between reality and the Babylon Bee. And so for the next few minutes here on the show, we're going to play a game I call Be, Sell, or Hold. It's a game that I have to, I've come up with a few examples of headlines, and you have to tell me whether it's the Babylon Bee or an actual headline.
Holy crap, Aaron. I haven't said this in a while because it hasn't needed to be said. I am impressed.
Wow. Okay. Well, what do you always say about expectations? Now I'm really, really nervous. I was kind of happy, that your expectations were so low. Now that they've been kind of shot up a little bit, I'm a little bit.
I love the concept of this.
Yeah. Okay. We'll start with this headline. So if you buy, that means you think that it's Babylon Bee. You sell, you think it's a real story.
Okay.
And hold, you're just a pansy.
Okay.
Question or headline number 1: McDonald's employee fired for asking if Happy Meal toy is for boy or girl.
Oh, I'll sell.
B.
I could see that is absolutely a true story.
So you are buying, Todd. You think it's the Babylon Bee?
Yes.
And you're selling, you think it's a real headline?
Oh, I think it absolutely is a real headline.
It is the Babylon Bee.
Huh.
Although it's one of the realest headlines I think we've ever heard. So that already mixed results. That tells you that, that's not too bad.
Can I get half a point on the likelihood that this will eventually be a real headline?
Oh,
and I think we all realize that.
Yeah.
And probably in about 10 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Let's see. Next headline: missing person alert issued for elderly man wandering down highway in bathrobe waving dead fish at passing cars.
B.
Sounds like Florida man to me.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. It sounds like Florida man to me as well. So I'm going to sell again that's a real headline.
It's actually Babylon Bee. It's Joe Biden there in the Photoshop.
Oh, that's brutal. Oh, that is.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
That's brutal.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. Let's see. Next one.
But that could also be true.
Yeah.
At the rate we're going, unfortunately. Yes.
Arby's makes meat-based vegetable to rival plant-based meat craze. Because you've got all these.
Because Arby's, we've got the meats.
Yeah, we've got these Impossible burgers, I think from Burger King, I want to say, that are plant-based.
Yeah, and there's another couple of places that are trying to trot them out as well.
Meat-based vegetable from Arby's. Is that real or Babylon Bee?
I will sell.
So you think that that's real?
I'm going to go Babylon Bee on this. A meat-based vegetable, I got to go Babylon Bee.
It's a real headline.
Yes. I'm on the cutting edge, folks.
Todd is 3-0.
I'm on the cutting edge of keeping this audience across the country informed, opining on the most latest breaking trends and news. Yes, I'm on the cutting edge of the societal revolution. Yes.
This one possibly out of California. Next headline. New law would allow millennials to stay on their parents' Netflix account until they're 35.
That's got to be. That's Babylon.
You were both right. Yeah. That's that could be California law coming your way soon.
That absolutely could be a California law. In fact, the biggest problem Bernie Sanders has in some respects is not even the Democratic establishment, but he can't get these Bernie bros off Twitter to show up to vote. Right? The youth vote has not shown up for him. Really, even in the states he's won, it hasn't shown up. Which makes you think they're not going to get a big, no matter who their nominee is. If Bernie Sanders can't get them to show up to vote, they're not going to put anybody out of Milwaukee that will, which is typical. Young people don't vote. But That's his biggest issue. And I would think could that be, I mean, you tell me, if could that get the Bernie bros off of Twitter and to show up at the ballot box? Hey, your parents have got to keep you on their Netflix account until they're 35. Could that be an issue that does it?
Probably, but their parents aren't going to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's a law. He's proposing it as a law.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, I guess. Yeah. I see
they
what
get sent to
saying.
They get sent to Google Logs if they want to. If they kick you off the Netflix account.
Yeah. Right. I could totally see that happening. That's also why the youth group the youth vote. That's probably why Sanders supporters are not going to make a huge dent in the Democratic chances in November because, I mean, they're not voting anyway. Next headline. This is an op-ed.
Isn't a Netflix subscription like $12 or $15 a month or something?
Yeah, it's really cheap.
You guys can't afford $15 a month?
Apparently not.
Wow.
This is an op-ed headline. There's no such thing as cancel culture.
That's
a sell. That's got to be from that. That's the media. I remember nobody was losing their religious freedom because of gay marriage until we forced those stories in front. Right? I'm going to sell and say that that's a mainstream media story.
It's Babylon Bee, an op-ed by Adolf Hitler.
Oh.
I saw that one too.
I did see that one too. So I still fell for it, man. I mean, I've actually linked that banana in the tailpipe and told other people, here's a banana in the tailpipe. And then I just went over there and slipped on it anyway.
That's how good the bee is.
It's really fun.
I want to work here when I grow up, man.
Twirling the reality stone over here. It's a lot of fun. This is a good exercise, though. Next headline. Only trans people can define transphobia in a way that's impossible to argue with.
Sell.
It's a real headline.
It sounds like a Tatiana McGrath tweet is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do, man, because I think have I gotten any of these right so far? One. I got one right.
Yep.
I'll sell.
You think that's a real headline?
I think it's a real headline.
Yeah. It is a real headline from Pink News. Don Butler explains why only trans people can define transphobia in a way that's impossible to argue with. Yeah.
Airtight.
Yeah. Let's see. Next headline. Oakland officials consider moving cities homeless onto a cruise ship.
Sell. Sell. This is like our rainforest in the middle of Iowa. It's got to be. It
is Oakland after all, the birthplace of the Black Panthers, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'll sell too and say that's a real story.
That's a real story.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Of course it is.
Yep.
Makes you want to root for coronavirus, doesn't it?
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit. Next headline. School forces teacher to respect failing students' preferred grade of A.
That's a Babylon Bee. That's got to be a Babylon Bee. I'm gonna be it. It's got to be a Babylon Bee.
I'm torn. This is the one I'm most torn on.
Where they're pointing out they're taking this to a ridiculous extent to point out the fallacy of this entire.
I'll go with B.
Well
garbage.
done. It's Babylon Bee. It's Babylon Bee.
Right.
This one's the last one, and we've still got 10 minutes in this segment. Oh boy.
This is your segment, so you're going to decide what the next 10 minutes is.
No, I got a plan. I've always got a plan. I mean, I've been working for you for 10 years, or it's only been 5 years now.
12 years a slave, Steve. I got a plan.
This is the final one. Non-binary esports champion Sonic Fox wins Mortal Kombat 11 Pro competition title.
Sell.
I'm gonna say it's a real headline.
Yeah, it's a real headline from Outsports. That's the SB Nation.
Non-binary esports.
Sonic Fox. Okay.
So that's.
So who are you? Well, I was the non-binary. Esports champion last year. What do you do? Work at I run the Rite Aid down the street.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well. I mean, I won $100,000 grand prize as the non-binary esports champion. How much you make last year? 38.5, and but it's got dental, right? Wow.
So yeah, that's the last B seller hold headline. Do you guys like that?
I did like it a lot.
It was great.
You know, I think we need to do that. I think I need to twirl the reality stone here in the studio
every few months. I think that's got some potential.
Keep our senses sharp.
To paraphrase Kirk Cousins, I liked it. I really liked it. I liked that. Yeah.
All right, let's go back to some listener submitted ones. Russell Lerno says, saying let's go get some Mexican food tonight is going to be considered racist before Steve is invited to speak at CPAC.
Bye.
Guys, coronavirus got invited to... I don't know what could happen now at this point. What you could conjure up that would not get invited to speak at CPAC before me. Coronavirus was invited to speak at CPAC before I was. So there you go.
Yeah. Jeremy in PA, or Pennsylvania, I guess, says, as our society falls further from God's truth, Christians will eventually find themselves in a tie with Jews as the first and most frequent target of statist anger.
Well, I think you're already seeing that trend line
go
that way. So yeah, I will buy. Yeah.
Let's see. Joe Biden, let's see.
Can I go back to that topic for a second? Yeah. This is why I got some of you upset at me during the last primary. This is why I was adamantly opposed to Trump's original messaging of a Muslim ban. All right, I was all for banning people from countries that are overrun by Islamic jihad. All for it. I was when I was on the Cruz campaign. I was when the president, after he got elected, that opening weekend, that was his opening policy salvo. I adamantly supported it. But if we start setting the precedent, right? Remember, it ain't no fun when the rabbit's got the gun. And if you're a Christian or a Jew, you should know the history of your religious faith. That whenever we start determining the status of citizens based on a particular religious practice that doesn't take away the rights from others, right? So if I'm a Satanist that believes in human sacrifice, that is a religious practice that takes away the rights of others, because what do I need to do in order to practice religious sacrifice? Kill other human beings. And killing is against the what? The law, right? Because people have a right to life. So historically, that has always been targeted at Christians and Jews the most throughout world history. Be very careful about setting that precedent, because you do still live in some form of a constitutional democratic republic. And just like the Patriot Act sounded great after 9/11, right? Yeah, give Dick Cheney the right to go after all the bad guys, right? And monitor all the... Didn't it sound great? Yeah, America, right? And then all of a sudden, a pharaoh who knows not Joseph named Barack Hussein Obama gets a hold of that program. And what's it look like then? Right? We're eavesdropping on AP reporters, Mr. Rosen at Fox News, right? We're using the IRS to go after pro-life groups, right? You know what I'm saying? Be very careful.
Not a hint of scandal, though, Steve.
Yes.
Not a hint.
Be very careful about the precedent you want to set now, because the good guys are in charge. Because understand, no government gets eliminated. No government gets cut. So anything you say government can do now, you are assenting to it being used against you when the other people are in control later. Be very careful with that.
Grant Asaski says, seminaries, with the exception of a few extra bastions of orthodoxy and sanity, will follow suit of our traditional universities and give themselves over to the spirit of the age within the next 10 years. I think that's already happening.
I mean, it's already happening. I mean, it started with the Episcopalians about 20 years ago. I mean, it's just, you're watching the tin soldiers fall as we speak. Already there.
Well, that's where
it's why we're having sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
It's why we are having the issues in the civic arena we're having, is because this already happened within the sacred square that sort of sets the tone from a moral standpoint. It's already happened.
Well, and that's the genesis of the entire priest abuse scandal. I mean, when you connect the dots, those seeds were planted a long time ago.
Let's see. Way Truth Life says Biden will have his worst debate performance this upcoming Sunday, that MSNBC and CNN will drive a narrative for another candidate to jump back into the race. Could you see that happening?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could buy that.
Buying that?
Yep.
Ryan Robertson says the Steve Deace Show is the Tony Romo of political talk shows. They demonstrate how politics isn't as complicated as politicians want us to believe.
That's a great compliment. I
like
appreciate that. Well,
yes.
And one of the things I've always tried to do is, and I even did this on a local level, is to bring you guys in, because I'm not classically educated. I'm a, kid born to a 15-year-old mom. I just have a microphone in front of my face. So I've always tried to ask the questions I think that regular people would ask if they had an opportunity like this, discuss the issues. I think, and I even did this when I was in sports. I'd ask, I covered recruiting years ago when people thought these message boards that are now passé, thought that they were never going to catch on. Okay. Because I was a sports fan and I was interested in it. So I knew other sports fans were too. So that's something we've always strived to do on this show. So that's a great compliment. Thank you.
Do you have anything to add, Todd?
Nope.
All right. Commie Virus Exterminator says before the end of the year, #MeToo for sex robots will be a top trend on Twitter. #Black Mirror update.
Sel, you're a year or two, you're a few years ahead of that one.
You said Black Mirror, so bye. That's.
Oh, yeah.
Todd is now prophesying in the name of a show he cannot bring himself to actually watch because it's so disturbing.
That's why.
Yes.
Oh, crud. I forgot this one. I meant to have this in the main segment. Pierre Delecto's Chicken Sandwich says, burn Milwaukee will be a thing. #burn Milwaukee, and
Bye.
burn is spelled
Bye.
BERN.
Bye.
Yep.
Yeah. I believe so. Let's see. Maybe one more really fast. Ebola will be invited to speak at CPAC before Steve is.
Bye. Here's the other reason I buy on that other one. That video we showed of Biden, we've showed a few times. Do you know where that video came from? Lefties, Bernie's people. They're the ones that shot that video and sent it out to the public. That didn't come from conservative media. That video was propagated by lefties. So, yeah. Bye. Especially they take the debates away and everything else. Okay, try to hide this guy.
Yep.
And I could see I could see that not just trending, but attempting in real time. I think that could happen as well. All right, we're going to stick around and do some overtime for our Blaze TV subscribers. And we're going to talk about, actually, the breaking news with Bernie Sanders deciding against all the conventional wisdom of last night that he is going to stay in the race after all. So what is his end game here? All right, we're going to discuss that amongst the three of us in overtime, blazetv.com/Deace. For the rest of you, we'll see you tomorrow. Until then, John 3:17.